All right, Georgia is undefeated. Dogs beat UAB 49-21. I'm Wes Blankenship with some instant thoughts on this one. As the Dogs came out of the opening gates looking really great on that first drive, offensively and defensively, flying around the ball, looking fast, looking crisp, and then a little bit of stops and starts as Georgia had a couple turnovers on special teams, and it just seemed like the Dogs took a while to kind of find their footing and find some momentum. But I'll tell you what, Brock Bowers is the cure for whatever ails you. And Georgia got him the ball, and he found the end zone a couple times. Carson Beck, look, was he perfect? No. But this guy's playing under a microscope right now. And I think that there are a lot of players who maybe if they had a little bit more experience under their belts, a little bit more benefit of the doubt, a couple misses that he had tonight would still be painful to watch, but they wouldn't be scrutinized as much as Brock Bowers or Carson Beck's misses were. Brock Bowers did not miss tonight. He had one fumble, but it went out of bounds. Here's Jake Rowe, deep in the bowels of Sanford Stadium. What's up, Jake? Instant thoughts on the game here, man.
Just
Is
one
Georgia?
second, Wes.
Can you hear me, Rowe? All right, I'm going to mute Jake. I don't know if he can hear me or not. Georgia wins 49-21. Let's go through the play-by-play here. First quarter, Carson Beck started things off with a strike to Arian Smith, 12-yard touchdown there as Georgia went up 7-0. But then in the second quarter, UAB was feeling a little feisty. I'm going to try to bring Jake Rowe back in. Let's see if he can. All right, he's got me. All right, Rowe.
Hey, dude, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Just kind of going through the start of this game and how Georgia started fast, lost its footing a little bit with some turnovers, and then eased things back up into the second half and really took control in the third quarter. The instant reaction on our message board was, Carson Beck continues to play under a microscope. He had a big miss on a deep ball. Arian Smith had a drop. Other than that, tonight, I don't know that you can find a lot of issues with what he did. A lot of times he didn't have a lot of time to pass. There was a fourth down. They went for it, and maybe Kirby didn't want to put Woodring in a spot to miss another field goal, or just they wanted to work on fourth down, and Beck missed a rah-rah there. But other than that, I thought Beck continues to improve tonight. Am I crazy?
No, not at all. I think that there was a couple drives there where there was a lull. You mentioned that turnover on Downs drive. Should have never got to fourth down. They had an open guy in the middle of the field, and Beck kind of missed him. It's going to happen. But sometimes, and it happened today. He kind of was given ground there on that fourth down and got sacked early in the game. I mean, UAB was trying to bring a lot of pressure in those high leverage situations, and it paid off for them. But ultimately, Beck, there were lulls in this game. There was a lull in this game offensively, but it wasn't what we'd seen in previous games. And I think there was definitely improvement there. Started faster, some more big plays. I mean, they should have done that to UAB. UAB's been giving up points. But ultimately, I think Georgia did a pretty good job of kind of riding the ship maybe a little bit quicker and keeping it from being a super close game at halftime because of the offense. They were able to kind of put 28 points up, and that's big for this team. I feel like Beck gained a lot of confidence. I mean, you look up and he's got 32 attempts and 336 yards. He accounted for 4 touchdowns. Was it a perfect night? No, but it was still a very, very good night overall, outside of a couple of drives. And one of those, ended up with a third down sack, but he also had a second down drop. He played through some drops and through some misses. We haven't seen Georgia do that in previous week. Normally it's a mistake and a killed drive. They overcame some mistakes tonight. I think that's a step forward.
Brock Bowers, man, you can't say enough about this guy. 9 catches, 120 yards tonight, and he just dominated, as you would expect against the opponent like UAB. But Bowers, I said coming in, he's the cure for whatever ails you. And while Georgia was in a little bit of a lull, they fouled Brock Bowers, and he kind of got the team back on track.
Different coaching staff, different players, but UAB gets the bad end of Brock Bowers every time. His breakout game as a freshman was against UAB, and he put it on again today. Huge game from him, and Georgia found ways to get. I like what they're doing. Somebody mentioned that he's caught a lot of passes kind of near the line of scrimmage. Hey, you can't double a guy if you're kind of running stuff to get him open right away and get the ball in his hands as quickly as possible. It's tougher to shut him down, and I think Georgia's doing a good job with that. And he looked a little bit healthier tonight, a little bit more explosive.
No doubt. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, explosive as well, finished with just under 100 yards. So Beck had his targets. He knew who he wanted to get the ball to, and he threw some beautiful balls to Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint and to Lovett. Bowers as well. I mean, he was spreading the ball around. Let me look back and see. Once again, one of those nights where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different guys caught a pass for Georgia. I mean, that's the MO. That's come over from Todd Monken's regime to Mike Bobo now. They're going to distribute the ball and get it to a lot of different guys, and obviously the score helped things out too as Georgia got more guys into the ball game. Let's talk about the defense really quick. I know you got to hop off here in a minute. Some concern on our message board that the defense doesn't have that same edge as it's had in years past. Again, there's a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball right now. I think the truth may be somewhere in the middle. I don't know if Georgia's really feeling like it needs to put the pedal to the metal at this point. Maybe that changes on the road at Auburn. But with Bullard out, it's kind of tough to replace a leader like that on the back end.
Man, it's tough for Georgia right now because they're missing a couple of key pieces tonight. I mean, Michael Williams is out of this game. Hopefully Kirby will kind of shed some light on that a little bit. We've heard some stuff, but nothing confirmed. And don't think it's long term or anything like that. I think he'll be back. But he didn't dress out and he was down on the sideline. I think losing him was a big part of it because that's kind of your game record. That's kind of your most talented guy that puts his hand on the ground. You mentioned Bullard, Tyron Ingram-Dawkins for a few games here. Georgia didn't play well at times on defense, but, we've got to also consider the fact that one of those he's got to play better in the red zone. And I think Kirby's going to say that, but one of those touchdowns was, Mekhi Muse kind of coughed it up and gave it to him on a very, very short field. And that's always going to be tough to deal with. UAB is a well-coached offensive team with Trent Dilfer. I mean, he knows what he's doing, knows how to attack a defense. And, we'll be hearing him talk here in just a little bit. But I think overall, going out there and basically with the starters pitching a shutout there in the second half for the second straight game, I think that's a positive. And I'm not going to worry about Georgia long-term defensively. I think once they start to get healthy, kind of find their footing in some ways, I think they're going to play a lot better defensively than we've seen them play during in stretches this past week. I think the main concern is when teams are getting inside the 20, they're scoring touchdowns. And that's something that Georgia has been elite at preventing. Teams have had a hard time running it in against Georgia, and they're not preventing that as well as they have in the past. And I think that's something that they can really grow with going forward.
Yeah, go back to that 2021 national championship season. That was the key change that Georgia made against Bama was locking down on the red zone and turning touchdowns into field goals. And ever since then, they looked really strong at it. On the flip side of that, Georgia did take a step forward with its red zone offense, looking way more efficient and effective, scoring touchdowns down there tonight.
Yeah, another big bright spot for the offense is that red zone efficiency and getting touchdowns down there. I think they kind of swept it today. The one time they turned it over on downs, they were at the 23. So that's going to look good for the numbers, no doubt about it.
Yeah, good numbers tonight, Jake. Georgia finishes with 581 total yards of offense. Mike Bobo getting the job done, even though in the moment fans may not always love what he's doing, but the numbers don't lie. Jake Rowe's going to run right now. Appreciate it, man. We'll catch you later on the Georgia show. All right, guys, let's chat about this game. Hang out for a few more minutes here. What a great day of college football. Ohio State just clinging and surviving to beat Notre Dame on the road there. Oregon and Dan Lanning, the Ducks. Oh, my gosh, did they show the Buffs what real college football looks like as that Cinderella story comes crashing to a halt, at least for now. And you also had a big game in Death Valley, one of the Death Valleys, as Florida State opportunistic against Clemson. That scoop and score in the game, that missed Clemson field goal, what could have been for the Tigers. Some big games. And then, of course, Alabama taking care of Ole Miss at home. And I was looking for Alabama to go out and win this game. And, I just thought that it was still a tough place to play. Milroe was getting too beat up on, and you watched that offense get better as the game went on, and the defense was pretty stout too. Looked like Ole Miss thought they would only need a touchdown to beat Bama, but they hung around. So some interesting action around the country today. Georgia didn't have to really sweat out too much against UAB. We know that things get a little bit more competitive as Georgia goes on the road to play Auburn next week. Say what you will about the Tigers and their performance against A&M today. A home game at Jordan-Hare is a different animal. So Georgia needs to start hot and stay hot on the road next week. Their first road game of the year and Carson Beck's first road start as a quarterback. I think they'll do all right, but I think some of these fits and starts, if they tumble into 2 and 3 consecutive drives, as we've seen Georgia do in earlier games this year, then it might not be too pretty for Georgia. It might not be too fun of a game to watch. But I think if this third quarter team, the second half team that you saw against South Carolina, Georgia starts piecing these things together, maybe get some guys back off that injury list, maybe Lawson Lucky makes it back next week to add a little bit more depth, a little different dynamic and wrinkle to the Georgia tight end room. Who knows? Maybe the Dogs continue to get better week by week. In the moment, there were some frustrating moments for Georgia, especially offensively, as Carson Beck was not playing perfectly to fan standards. But look at that stat sheet, man. 22-32, 337, 3 touchdowns, and he rushed one in as well in the quarterback sneak. And then on defense, you're missing some guys. And I know you're not going to want to hear about injuries as an excuse for the Dogs on defense, but you've got some leaders, you've got some thumpers. Mykel Williams being out tonight hurt, so we'll see what his deal is as Kirby Smart will address the media here soon. So all in all, I still come away from this game feeling the same way I did coming into it. Didn't think you were going to learn a whole heck of a lot against UAB unless Georgia lost, and they didn't. They gave up some garbage points late in the game and early on in the game, right before the half there. I almost felt like they were just playing to get to halftime, and UAB kind of snuck up on them and scored a touchdown. But I know there's a lot to be critical about for this team, especially when you're looking at a three-peat and you're thinking, man, every game's got to be perfect. We got to be dominating every team, every game. But take a step back and take a look at the other teams around the country. Nobody's dominating anybody right now. So Georgia, yeah, you want to see them be head and shoulders above the rest and be better than everybody else, but that's just not how college football looks at this point in the year anyway. And who's to say that by the end of the year, Georgia won't look like that team? They've got a lot of time to figure it out. I think Kentucky will be a real test. Auburn could be a test, like I said, but I think Georgia should be able to handle the Tigers. So we'll see. But let me know in the comments. Hit like and subscribe on this channel, and stay tuned with what we have going on each and every week. We're live several times throughout the week, every post game like we are right now, every Sunday at 8:30 on the Georgia Show, every Monday at 9 p.m. on Bark After Dark, and again on Wednesday at 8:30. If y'all are our loyal viewers and listeners, we appreciate you joining right now on this post game. If you're new, well, welcome in. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss us whenever we do go live and do post new stuff. Jenna Smith hates that Ohio State pulled out another one. Look, Ohio State had a lot of chances to put that one away early on, or earlier on than the final bell there. If Ryan Day kicks a field goal when they did that dumb jet sweep on 4th and inches or whatever it was, then they could have just kicked a field goal for the win. But I guess the Peach Bowl broke Ryan Day. He didn't want to leave another game on the laces of his kicker. One overthrow. Others were dropped. Yeah, the one overthrow was not the best, but quarterbacks have those, man. They get them. They do that. It's not going to be in lockstep every single time. This is his 4th start ever. I know I sound like a Carson Beck water carrier to a lot of the Carson Beck critics out there. Go back and watch the game and see how much time the guy had to get the ball out at times tonight. Was Brock Vandagriff going to change that? No, he's not out there blocking. So when you have misses here and there, it's very rare to have a quarterback go perfect. They don't really have a lot of perfect games. They don't do that too much. So, yeah, Jenna, you're correct pointing out Mike Honcho here. Beck didn't miss multiple deep throws. He missed one, and Arian Smith dropped the other. So let's just see what he does, man. Beck went 6 for 6 in the red zone. Big improvement. Thank you, Uncle Sam. That is true. He was much better in the red zone. I did not tell you Ladd would be playing 2 weeks ago, Jason Jackson. It must have been somebody else. All we've heard is that Ladd is continuing to practice, and he starts out each week strong, ready to go, and then by the end of the week, his back is cramping up again. So for this past week of game prep for UAB, they just sat Ladd out and just said, let's not keep running his back muscles through a meat grinder. Let's give him some rest and see if that helps. So that's what we've heard at DawgsHQ. I never told anybody that Ladd was going to play. I don't know if anyone else at DawgsHQ did, but it's been tough to predict. But we said that we thought he could be playing and that there's a chance that it could be a prolonged injury, and that's what it's turned into. You know, we're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. That's just what we know. Ladd is day to day, Tomahawk Dog says. Aren't we all? Let's see. Let me scroll back through the comments here. Georgia 4-0, 49-21 over UAB. Georgia in 4 games this year. Let's see what they've done offensively. 48-7 win over UT Martin, 45-3 win over Ball State, 24-14 over South Carolina, 49-21 over UAB, and that's with a bunch of banged up dogs. This isn't the Ohio State fan saying we would have beat Georgia if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't hurt. This is Ladd McConkey's hurt, Brock Bowers banged up, Lawson Lucky's hurt, Marius Mims out, Michael Williams out, Javon Bullard out, Kendall Milton out, Dejan Edwards out, Andrew Paul not 100% mentally or physically. So, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. Tyron Ingram Dawkins, another defensive lineman. You know, Georgia likes to rotate D linemen and have wave after wave after wave of physical players beating up and beating down offensive linemen. You don't have that as part of your game plan right now. So guys are going to be a little bit more tired, a little bit more fatigued, but guess what you're still doing? You're still going out and dominating offensively and defensively. 49 points tonight with your backups in there, 45 in week 2, 48 in week 1. And, you know, last week against South Carolina, that's your welcome to the SEC moment for a bunch of players that had not been called upon in that exact situation as starters. So this team is learning, guys. It's a big piece of work. This is a larger scale piece of work than just the microscopic look at Carson Beck missing a throw. Where's this team heading week over week? With all the injuries that I just mentioned, if you take that into consideration, I think you should still be very impressed with what this team's doing. Now, we'll learn a lot about them again at Auburn. We learned a lot about Georgia against South Carolina. They started slow. They maybe thought they could just roll out there and beat South Carolina in the first half, and then you saw the halftime speech that Kirby Smart gave the team, and what did they do after that? They went out and dominated. So this team's got special DNA. They're just thin. They're thin, guys. But that's why you recruit the way that you do, so that one player going down doesn't submarine your whole team. And we're not seeing that with Georgia. We're not. Rosmi Jack Saint is a legit difference maker, according to Raj. Love that he's getting a chance to show it. Me too, man. Beck's got to have more than just Brock Bowers to throw the ball to. Dominic Lovett, is also a reliable target. He had a drop tonight. Arian Smith had a big drop. I mean, across the board, guys were struggling in their own unique ways. But Dominic Lovett, 3 catches for 59 yards. Oscar Delp, quietly, 3 catches for 28. So Brock, Jack Saint, Lovett, Delp, big targets tonight. Cash Jones had a couple. Ra had a couple. On the ground, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different players had rushing attempts. Brock Vandergriff, one of them. Carson Beck, one of them. Gunnar Stockton, one of them. But you had a good night on the ground from Dajan Edwards. Nice little pop from him. Dylan Bell had 3 carries, but Dajan was the bell cow tonight. 12 carries for 66 yards and 2 scores. Nice little stat sheet there. CJ Smith needs more shine, says Chris Daniel. I agree. I like what that guy brings to the table. I imagine he's still trying to learn the offense 100% and let the coaches trust what he can do. Not cracking the starting lineup just yet, but when he comes in, he leaves a mark. 1 catch for 21 yards tonight. I hated to see Delp get suplexed too. Delp's just got to keep his feet on the ground and keep chopping, man. Doesn't need to be trying to leap over guys or anything fancy like that. Just keep running, lower your shoulder, and get upfield. Dajan has some great moves. Yes, he does. He just finds space. He's like a gas. I don't know if y'all studied physics or maybe that's chemistry, but a gas just fills its space, whatever container it's in. And Dajan, if there's an opening in that offensive line, he's going to find it. It's like a magnet. Just goes right through. Appreciate y'all with the comments tonight, keeping it live here, especially after a UAB game. This isn't even a SEC game, not even a road game, not even anything too dramatic tonight. Just a lot of angst on our message board over at DawgsHQ.com, which you're welcome to join. $1 for 1 month to give that thing a test drive and see what you like about it. And I understand in the moment, it's easy to be hypercritical. I'm not going to be hypercritical of you for being that way. If that's how you felt, you expect a lot of this team because there's a standard at Georgia. The fact of the matter is that standard is going to be tough when you have the injury list that Georgia has. That's not to say that you can excuse things because the next guys that play need to be ready to go, but it's just the reality right now. Georgia's got a lot of guys that are still learning how to play. Now, the upside for this is these guys are going to have more game reps than they may have had if there weren't all these Georgia injuries. What you got to hope is that the injuries don't spiral, that they don't domino effect and continue to be a problem, a narrative throughout the season, so that by the time you're in the playoffs or the postseason, knock on wood, Lord willing, if you're a Dogs fan, you've got a full roster of guys that have seen some meaningful minutes. Right now, you don't have that. There are guys that are getting exposed, but that's part of it. You got to learn some trial by fire. Jenna Smith, I hear you. I hear your frustration. Frustrating to see UAB put 21 up on Georgia. Really the most frustrating one was the touchdown right before the half. I think that was the one where it almost looked like Georgia mailed it in a little bit on defense. Late in the game, you're going against second and third stringers, guys that are getting reps like I just mentioned. Not too much to be frustrated with there. And the first touchdown was off of a turnover. Go back and look at that sequence of events. Georgia doesn't kick a field goal. They go for it on 4th down. They don't get it. UAB gets the ball right there. Georgia stops them. UAB punts, and you fumble on the punt return. All that changes, you kick the field goal, you convert the 4th, maybe you score a touchdown there, and that's a 14-point swing. But hey, that's football for you. D. Brown, turnovers gave him 2 of 3 touchdowns. That's why coaches hate him. You got to protect the ball. But what is Carson Beck doing better than, I won't say better than Brock Vandergriff or better than Gunnar Stockton because I don't know what they're doing in practice. But Carson Beck protects the football. So you want to beat up on the guy because he misses a deep ball or throws behind a target when he's got 3 guys in his face because his pass protection is breaking down. He's not throwing it into the hands of the other team. He almost did it one time tonight. One time. Almost did it one time. But by and large, this season, he's been very smart with the football. And if you're playing football for Kirby Smart, that's going to keep you in that top spot. It's gonna let you get away with some things that, maybe frustrate the fans, but at least it's not losing the game for your team. So we'll see how Beck continues to go as the season goes on. I spoke with David Pollock earlier in the week. Invite y'all to check that video out when this wraps up here. But he and I are both on the same page. He's a pretty smart guy, so it makes me feel good about myself. He's not worried about what Carson Beck's doing because he's only started a handful of games, and he's getting better each time. He's got a cannon. He's getting more comfortable in the offense and learning what Mike Bobo expects him to do. Yes, Mike Bobo implements a lot of what Todd Monken did, but it's still Mike Bobo's offense. And anytime you replace a quarterback and an offensive coordinator in the same season, the odds are going to be stacked against you for success right out of the gate. So the best you can hope for is for Georgia to get better each and every game. Did Georgia get better offensively against South Carolina? I would argue that they didn't. But other than that, Georgia's been putting up pretty steady 48, 45, 49 points. In this era of college football where the clock rules are changing and no one can figure out what they want to do, I think that's pretty steady, regardless of the competition. Let's look around at the scores from around college football tonight. In the top 25, Washington is arguably the best offensive team in the country right now. They have 31 points at half. Not even at half, playing Cal. Michigan only put up 31 against Rutgers. Florida State only scored 31 against Clemson. Oklahoma only scored 20 against Cincinnati. Oregon only scored 42 against Colorado, however you say it. Utah only scored 14 against UCLA. Bama only scored 24 against Ole Miss. Duke scored 41 against UConn. Miami scored 41 against Temple. Tennessee only scored 45 against UTSA. LSU won 34-31 over Arkansas. Washington State, 38 points. I mean, just going down the list here. Florida in the top 25, 22 points. Texas, only 38 points against Baylor. Ohio State, 17 points at Notre Dame. Penn State, 31 points against Iowa. North Carolina, 41 points against Pittsburgh. You go back and look at some college football scores in years past. Some of those scores are in the 50s, maybe in the 60s. This clock rule is changing a lot about how teams stop and start on offense. I think it's killing the rhythm of a lot of good offensive teams that might otherwise be putting up a lot more points. So that's going on, and Georgia is still averaging around 40-something points a game right now. So, Bobo haters, I know you're that's your reflex. Bobo comes back and you're going to roll your eyes. He had some pretty nifty plays tonight. That one sprint out for Beck, I think his last touchdown of the game, sprinted out to his right and then threw back to Bowers for the touchdown. That was good stuff. That was a good design. And, there's some concern that Georgia doesn't throw it down the field enough to keep people honest. I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't. Yeah, I know Beck misses some people here and there. Again, every quarterback's going to do that. Every quarterback misses players that are open. It's just a part of the game. It's a fact of life. But the Dogs are doing what they need to do, man. 500-something yards of offense. I think they're throwing it where they need to throw it as much as they need to throw it until someone figures out how to stop it. We'll see. Maybe Auburn does. I doubt it, though. Matthew C., I actually did think about this. When Ohio State ran the jet sweep on fourth down, it did give me 2016 Vandy game flashbacks. That is the first play I thought of. You should never run a jet sweep on 4th and 1. I mean, I think it might have even been 4th and inches. I'll have to go back and look at it. That was bad, though. But it still worked for Ohio State. Like I said, they could have won the game earlier and not needed to run it in on the very last play of the game. Kick a field goal there or just run it up the middle there. Get some points one way or another. Could be kicking a field goal for the win, but I guess that Peach Bowl broke old Ryan Day. He did not want to have another game decided by a kick. Chris Daniel says Bowers is Auburn's kryptonite. Bowers is a lot of teams' kryptonite, and I think the only kryptonite for Brock Bowers is kryptonite because I don't think that guy's human. All right, appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. I'm going to wrap things up, get some videos chopped up for DawgsHQ. Y'all stay tuned here on this YouTube channel or head on over to DawgsHQ.com for all the post-game reaction tonight or when you wake up tomorrow morning. I know it's been a late one, and there's still some more football going on. USC and Arizona State, 14-7 right now after 1, and Washington showing that they might be for real. So some good stuff going on. If you're staying up, hang out with us over at DawgsHQ.com. If not, we'll catch you tomorrow morning and tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, back here for the Georgia show. A little bit more of a rest and react approach to what we saw from Georgia against UAB and some early chatter about Georgia taking on Auburn. Y'all have a great evening. See you soon.